It was a rough year for Penn State in 2021, but you can't really blame the schedule. I know it was an all Big Ten schedule, but they didn't have too tough of a draw out of the West. They didn't have to play Wisconsin or Northwestern. They got Iowa at home, which, of course, home field advantage was not a big deal last year. They got to play Illinois, one of the bottom teams, or I guess they were at the bottom of the Big Ten West. So you can't really blame the schedule. It was just a rough year. They had a rough start, but they turned things around. And we'll look at this 2021 schedule and see if it's going to give them a chance to have a big turnaround. This is the schedule. As you can see, they were 4-5 last year. Schedule on the right. Before we go through the schedule, let's look at the games where the opponents that they'll play outside of the division. So we're looking at the non-divisional games. First of all, in the non-conference, they'll play Ball State, Auburn, and Villanova. And then in the Big Ten West, they will play Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. So a pretty tough non-conference schedule, really. I mean, it's not brutal or anything. You do get Villanova in there, but Ball State's a team that just won the MAC this past year. Auburn should be a pretty good team. I don't know that they'll be a top 10, top 15 type team, but still they're going to be a tough team to beat, I'm sure. And then out of the West, that's tough. Wisconsin and Iowa both on the road. Looking at it right now, I think those are probably the top two teams in the Big Ten West. So you play the two top teams out of the West, and you play them both on the road. So that is a very tough draw there. The good news is they do get Illinois, and that's a team that they should be able to beat. So let's go back to the schedule now. They will kick things off, again, with a Big Ten Conference game, a huge game to start the season on the road at Wisconsin on September the 4th. That's a big one. That is a huge game, and it's a game that I think is really going to set the tone for both teams. Both teams really need to get this win, need to get off to a good start. You lose this game, it's, of course, going to be a rough start to the season. And for Penn State, especially the way they started last year, this becomes very, very important. And it's going to be a tough one on the road. So you need to get that win. And really, the first three games of the year for Penn State are pretty tough. Ball State that next week, September 11th. Now, Penn State should win. They're clearly a more talented team than Ball State. But it's not a game where you're just going to be able to pull all the starters at halftime and play the backups. You're probably going to have to play at least 3 quarters in this game. And so if you don't bring your A game, you could let a Ball State team maybe hang around. So that's not an easy win, but it's a game they should win. And then Auburn on September 18th. The good news is they get this game at home. I think it's a pretty even matchup. When I look at it right now, both teams are kind of similar. I think both teams are kind of borderline top 25 coming into this season. So that'll be a huge game there in the non-conference. Then, of course, Villanova on September 25th. That's the one easy game on this schedule. I mean, that's really the only easy win that you can find on this 2021 schedule. They'll play Indiana on October 2nd. They want revenge in this one. A controversial call at the end of the game last year. They'll be playing at home. I'm sure they will be fired up for this matchup. Iowa on October the 9th on the road. Tough place to play. And again, I'm assuming that there will be fans at these games. Maybe not full capacity. Maybe it will be. I'm hoping it's full capacity. But if it's not, you would think, unless something really changes over the next few months, you would expect at least 50% capacity. So there should be a home field advantage. Even if it's like last year, maybe not in the Big Ten, but in the SEC and the ACC, a 25% capacity is still enough to give you an advantage. So that'll be a tough matchup there. Again, Wisconsin and Iowa both on the road, very tough. Illinois on October 23rd. That is a home game for Penn State, a game that they won easily last year. So you really like their chances there. That might be their easiest game outside of Villanova and maybe Ball State. Ohio State on October 30th. They will play them on the road. Again, you're talking about a tough matchup on the road. Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio State, they have a really tough road schedule. And that, of course, is going to be a tough one to win. Maryland on November 6th, another revenge game, I think, for Penn State. That was probably their worst game of the season last year, getting blown out against Maryland. And really, I felt like Penn State was probably the better team. They just had a bad game. And with COVID and everything, it was a weird year, of course. But that'll be on the road. Not going to be an easy win. Michigan on November 13th. That's a big game there as well. If Ohio State wins the Big Ten East, like I think most people would expect them to do, Penn State, Michigan, a lot of times is a battle for second place in that division, but don't count out Indiana, of course. So that'll be a good game, but you get Indiana and Michigan both at home. So I think Penn State has a great shot to finish number 2 in the Big Ten East. Then they'll have Rutgers at home, a team that is starting to turn it around. We saw that last year. Not going to be an easy one. And then Michigan State on the road November 27th to close out the season. Michigan State figures to be towards the bottom of the Big Ten East, but playing them on the road, not going to be an easy win. So when you look at the schedule, it's really that first 2/3 of the schedule, I guess you would say, from Wisconsin to Ohio State. Yeah, you get Illinois and Villanova and Ball State in there, but the majority of that is going to be pretty tough. That's where you're going to find out about Penn State. If they can come out of that first stretch, those first 8 games, really it's over half the season, but still, if you come out of those 8 games with 1 or 2 losses, the final 4 games, Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan State, you're going to have a really good opportunity, I think, to win all 4 of those games. So if Penn State can come through Wisconsin, Auburn, Indiana, Iowa, Ohio State, come through those games with 1 or 2 losses, which is going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. But if they can do that, they could be coming down a stretch here in November with the possibility of maybe finishing in the top 10, maybe even going to a New Year's Six Bowl. But they're going to have to do well in those first 8 games. And again, maybe it all starts with Wisconsin. That's the game I think that's going to set the tone for their season. You really need to win that if you're Penn State. But all in all, the schedule for Penn State in 2021, pretty tough, with a pretty tough non-conference schedule, a very tough draw out of the Big Ten West, a very tough road schedule. So Penn State definitely are going to have their hands full with this schedule in 2021.